I was halfway through fixing the kitchen sink when I heard the knock at the door. It was sharp, urgent, the kind of knock that told you someone wasn't just stopping by to say hello. I wiped my hands on a towel and made my way to the front, expecting maybe a delivery I'd forgotten about or some neighbor needing help with something. What I wasn't expecting was a man in a navy blue suit, standing there like he had a purpose. He held a small envelope in his hand, his expression unreadable. "Daniel Carter?" His voice was steady, professional. I nodded. "Yeah, that's me. What's this?" He handed me the envelope without another word, then turned on his heel and walked away before I could ask anything else. The whole thing took less than 10 seconds, but it left a strange weight in my chest. I glanced down at the envelope. No name, no return address, just my name written in plain, blocky letters. I shut the door, sat down at the kitchen table, and opened it. Inside was a single photograph. My wife, Emily, sitting in the passenger seat of a black car, laughing. A man was next to her, his face turned slightly away, but his hand was on her thigh. The timestamp in the corner told me it was taken 2 nights ago. For a few moments, I didn't react. My mind refused to process what I was looking at, like if I stared long enough, the image would somehow change. But it didn't. It stayed the same. Emily, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years, her body language relaxed, familiar, like this was routine, like this was normal, like this was theirs. I set the photo down, my fingers numb, my ears ringing. This wasn't some misunderstanding. This wasn't an old picture. This was 2 nights ago. While I had been sitting at home, thinking she was out with her friends, she had been with him. I forced myself to take a deep breath, to steady the sudden rush of emotions clawing at my throat. My first instinct was to call her, to demand an explanation, to hear whatever excuse she'd come up with. But I didn't. Instead, I picked the photo back up, flipped it over, and saw 5 words written in the same blocky handwriting as my name on the envelope. This isn't the only one. I stared at the words, my heartbeat slowing into something dark, something controlled. Whoever had sent this wanted me to know. They wanted me to see. And now I did. I placed the photo back in the envelope, stood up, and grabbed my keys. I wasn't going to sit here waiting for the next picture to arrive. I was going to find out for myself. I got into my car and gripped the steering wheel, the envelope sitting on the passenger seat like a bomb waiting to go off. My mind was racing, trying to put the pieces together, trying to understand how I had missed this. Emily had lied to me, but she hadn't just lied. She had made me believe there was nothing to question. Every time she left for the evening, every time she smiled at me and told me she loved me before heading out, it had all been part of this act. My fingers tightened against the wheel as I tried to think rationally, but it was impossible. Someone had sent me proof, and they had more. Whoever they were, they had been watching her, and by extension, they had been watching us. I needed to know where she had been that night. I didn't have access to her messages, and I wasn't about to ask her anything yet, not until I had more. I forced myself to take slow breaths as I thought back to that night. She had left the house around 7, telling me she was meeting Sarah and Megan for dinner. It wasn't unusual. They were her closest friends, and the 3 of them went out every couple of weeks. I had no reason to doubt her, but now I had no reason to believe her either. If I asked Sarah or Megan directly, there was a chance they would cover for her, or worse, they might not even know what I was talking about. That left me with one option. I had to retrace her steps myself. I drove to the restaurant she had claimed to be going to, a mid-range Italian place we had been to as a family plenty of times. The parking lot wasn't as crowded as I expected for a Friday night, which made it easier to spot the entrance cameras mounted near the doors. Most places had them now, for insurance reasons if nothing else. I walked inside, forcing my expression into something neutral, something that didn't give away the fact that I was standing there trying to confirm whether my wife had lied to my face. The hostess greeted me with a polite smile, but I wasn't interested in small talk. "Hey, I was supposed to meet my wife here the other night, but I got the date wrong. She was with a couple of friends. Blonde, shoulder-length hair, blue dress, probably with 2 other women. You wouldn't happen to remember seeing them, would you?" I kept my tone casual, but the woman's face scrunched slightly as she tried to think. "I'm not sure," she admitted. "I wasn't working that night, but let me check something." She stepped away and tapped at the computer near the register, her fingers moving quickly as she scrolled through the system. "What night was it?" "2 nights ago," I said, glancing at the timestamp on the photo again. She nodded, then frowned slightly. I don't see a reservation under that name, but I can check the walk-ins. More scrolling, another pause. No, I don't see 3 women matching that description in here either. Are you sure it was this location? I forced a short chuckle. Yeah, maybe I got mixed up. Thanks for checking. I walked out without another word, my jaw locked so tightly I could feel the pressure in my temples. She had never been here. The entire story about dinner with friends had been a lie, and she had never even bothered to cover her tracks. I sat in my car for a long moment, staring at the dashboard, forcing myself to stay in control. If she hadn't been here, then where had she gone? The only thing I had to go on was the car and the photo, the man's hand on her leg, and the knowledge that someone out there knew the answer better than I did. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I landed on the one name I hadn't thought I'd ever need to use for something like this, Mark. He had been my best friend since college, the one person I knew who would never feed me bullshit just to make me feel better. More importantly, he worked as a security consultant, which meant he had access to things I didn't. I hit the call button and waited, my leg bouncing slightly as the phone rang. Dan. His voice came through after a few rings, casual as ever. Didn't expect to hear from you this late. What's up? I need a favor, I said, skipping the small talk entirely. Something's going on with Emily, and I need to know where she was 2 nights ago. I don't have much to go on except a photo someone sent me, but she told me she was at dinner, and that was a lie. Mark was quiet for a second, and I could almost hear the way his mind shifted into problem-solving mode. What kind of photo? Someone took a picture of her in a car with another guy? Hand on her thigh. Looks recent. He swore under his breath. Shit, Dan. You sure about this? That's why I'm calling you. I let out a slow breath. I need to know if she was with him all night, or if this was just some random moment. I need to see everything before I confront her. I get it, he said. All right, send me the photo. I'll see what I can do. I ended the call and attached the image, my hands steady despite the storm raging inside me. Mark wouldn't ask unnecessary questions. He wouldn't make excuses for her or tell me to just talk to her. He would find me answers. As I sent the picture, my mind replayed everything over and over again, trying to grasp onto something that would make this make sense. But nothing did. All I had now was the proof in front of me, and the knowledge that I wasn't the only one watching her. I sat in my car for what felt like an eternity, my phone resting in my palm as I waited for Mark to respond. My mind was a mess, flipping between 1,000 different possibilities, each one worse than the last. I thought about Emily's face that morning, the way she kissed me goodbye like nothing was wrong, like she wasn't carrying a secret that could rip our entire marriage apart. I thought about the way she laughed at dinner last night, completely unaware that someone had already put the first crack in the wall of lies she had built around herself. My stomach twisted at the thought that this wasn't some misunderstanding, that the woman I had trusted for over a decade was capable of sitting across from me, smiling like everything was normal, while she was sneaking around behind my back. I clenched my jaw, trying to focus on what I could control, and that was getting the truth, no matter how much it hurt. My phone buzzed. A message from Mark. Got a hit. Call me. I didn't hesitate. I pressed the call button, gripping the steering wheel with my free hand, as the line rang once before Mark picked up. His voice was serious, the usual laid-back tone gone. All right, Dan, listen up. I ran the plates from the car in your photo. The car is registered to a guy named Ryan Holt. Name ring a bell. I repeated the name under my breath, searching my memory, but it came up empty. No. Who the hell is he? That's what I'm figuring out. But here's what I do know. He's local, mid-30s, single, works in finance. The address on the registration matches a high-end condo complex downtown. So unless Emily has a second job I don't know about, she had no reason to be in his car. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of those words settle over me. Tell me you found more than just a name. Mark hesitated for a second before continuing. I pulled traffic cam footage from around the area where the picture was taken. Your wife was seen getting into his car outside a hotel, not a restaurant. It was about 20 minutes after she was supposed to be having dinner with her friends. And before you ask, I checked. Sarah and Megan weren't anywhere near that hotel that night. My grip on the wheel tightened until my knuckles turned white. How long was she with him? About 3 hours, Mark said, his voice careful, measured, like he was bracing for my reaction. The car left the hotel, drove toward his place, and then nothing. No more footage after that. But 3 hours, Dan? She sure as hell wasn't talking about work. 3 hours. She had spent 3 hours with another man while I was at home putting our kids to bed, believing she was out with friends. My vision blurred for a moment, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me like a vice. I had known the moment I saw that photo that something was wrong, but hearing it confirmed in such a cold, factual way made it real in a way I wasn't prepared for. "You okay, man?" Mark's voice pulled me back, grounding me before I let myself spiral too far. "No," I admitted, my voice tight. "But I will be." "What else do you have on this guy?" "Not much yet, but I'll keep digging," Mark promised. "What are you gonna do?" I swallowed hard, forcing my thoughts into order. I need to see her face when she realizes I know. I need to hear what kind of bullshit excuse she's gonna try to sell me. And then, I'm gonna make her regret every second of it. Mark didn't try to talk me down, didn't tell me to calm down or think things through. He knew me too well for that. "Whatever you do, don't go in blind. Get everything first. The more proof you have, the less she can twist it." "I know," I said, already making a plan in my head. "Keep looking into him. If she's been seeing him longer than just one night, I want to know." "You got it." I ended the call and sat there for a moment, letting everything sink in. 3 hours. A hotel. A man I had never heard of before tonight. It wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It wasn't paranoia or overthinking. It was real, and it had been happening right under my nose. I forced myself to breathe, to focus on what came next. I wasn't the kind of man who would sit back and pretend everything was fine. I wasn't the kind of man who would let his wife humiliate him and get away with it. I needed proof, more than just a photo, more than just traffic footage. I needed to catch her myself, to see it with my own eyes. Emily wasn't expecting me to question her. She thought she was in control, that she had me fooled. But she had no idea that her game was already over. I started the car and drove home, my mind already turning over the next step. I wasn't going to confront her yet. Not until I had everything. Not until there was no way for her to lie her way out of it. I would wait, watch, and when the moment was right, I would let her see exactly what happens when you betray the wrong man. I pulled into the driveway and sat there for a moment, staring at the house I had built my life around. The lights in the living room were on, casting a soft glow through the curtains, and for a second, it looked just like any other night. A normal house with a normal family inside. But I knew better now. I knew that inside those walls, my wife was living a life I had no part in, sharing parts of herself with another man while pretending to be the woman I had loved for over a decade. The thought made my stomach twist, but I forced myself to stay calm. I couldn't let her see anything yet. I had to be patient. I had to be smart. I grabbed the envelope from the passenger seat and tucked it under my jacket before stepping out of the car. The second I walked through the front door, Emily's voice floated in from the kitchen. "Hey, babe. You're home early. Everything okay?" I forced a smile as I walked in, my heartbeat steady even though I wanted to throw the photo in her face right then and there. She was standing by the stove, stirring something in a pan, looking completely at ease. She turned to give me a quick kiss on the cheek, her touch light, familiar. "Yeah, work was slow," I said, keeping my voice even. "Figured I'd call it a night early." She smiled, her eyes scanning my face like she was looking for something, but I didn't give her anything to find. "That's nice. You hungry?" "I made stir-fry." I shook my head. "Nah, I grabbed something on the way home." She nodded, turning back to the stove, and I watched her for a moment, trying to see if there was any trace of guilt in the way she moved. But there was nothing. She looked the same as she always did, calm, collected, completely unaware that I knew. It made my skin crawl to think that this was the same woman who had been sitting in another man's car, letting him touch her like it was the most natural thing in the world. I clenched my jaw and turned away before my anger got the best of me. "I'm going to take a shower," I said, already walking toward the stairs. "Okay, I'll be up in a bit," she called after me. I didn't answer. Once I was in the bedroom, I shut the door behind me and pulled out my phone. Mark had already sent me another message. "Found more. Call me when you can." I dialed him immediately, keeping my voice low. "Talk to me." "You were right," he said, his tone grim. "This wasn't a one-time thing. I pulled security footage from that same hotel over the past month. She's been there 3 times. Same car, same guy. She always meets him in the back parking lot, gets in, and they drive off together. Never stays long. Maybe 2, 3 hours max." I let out a slow breath, my fingers tightening around the phone. "And you're sure it's him? Same plates, same car, same guy?" "No doubt about it. I ran a hand down my face, the confirmation making my stomach turn. All right, that's all I need. What's the plan? Mark asked. I set a trap, I said without hesitation. If she's been meeting him regularly, she'll do it again. I just need to make sure I'm there when it happens. Mark was silent for a moment before he spoke again. You want me to help? I need you to be my backup, I said. I'll handle the rest. You got it. I ended the call and sat on the edge of the bed, my mind already working through the details. If Emily thought she could keep sneaking around without getting caught, then I was going to make sure her next meeting with Ryan Holt was her last. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to make sure she had no way out, no excuse to fall back on, no lie that could erase what she had done. She had made her choice, and now she was going to face the consequences. The next morning, I acted normal. I kissed her goodbye before leaving for work, smiled when she texted me during the day, and even called her in the afternoon to ask what she wanted for dinner. She had no idea that I was already 3 steps ahead of her, that every word she spoke was just another thread in the web she had tangled herself in. Then, around 6 in the evening, I got the message I had been waiting for. Hey babe, Sarah and Megan want to grab drinks tonight. Won't be too late. Love you. I stared at the screen, the lie so blatant it almost made me laugh. She was good, I'd give her that. But not good enough. I texted back, keeping my response simple. Sounds fun. Be safe. Love you too. Then I called Mark. She's making her move, I said. Time to make mine. I parked a block away from the hotel, far enough that Emily wouldn't spot my car, but close enough that I could see the entrance. I had left the house 30 minutes after she did, giving her enough time to think she was in the clear. Mark was already in position near the back parking lot, his truck blending in with the others in the dimly lit area. He had a camera set up on the dashboard, ready to record the moment she arrived. We had gone over the plan twice before I left, making sure nothing was left to chance. I checked the time, 7:42 p.m. Emily's text had come through at 6. If her pattern held, she would be pulling in any minute. My hands rested on the steering wheel, steady despite the fire burning in my gut. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't second-guessing. I was done with doubts, done with giving her the benefit of the doubt, done pretending like there was any possibility she had an explanation that could make this disappear. Mark's voice came through my phone speaker. She's here. Same car, same guy. I gripped the wheel a little tighter, my eyes locked on the entrance as I watched Emily's figure slip through the glass doors like she belonged there. How long are we waiting? Mark asked. Not long, I said, already getting out of my car. I want her comfortable before I walk in. Mark chuckled, a low, knowing sound. You're a cold bastard when you want to be. I didn't respond, because there was nothing to say. I pocketed my phone and walked toward the hotel, my pace even, my face neutral. No one gave me a second glance as I stepped inside. The lobby was quiet, the kind of place where people came for discretion, not attention. I scanned the room quickly, looking for any sign of her, but I already knew where she was. Mark had followed them up with his camera and confirmed the floor. Room 214. I took the stairs, not trusting myself to stand still in an elevator. My heartbeat was steady as I reached the second floor, my footsteps silent against the carpeted hallway. The number 214 was right where I expected it to be, the door closed, the small "Do Not Disturb" sign hanging from the handle. I stared at it for a moment, taking in the reality of it, the proof that went beyond a photograph or a timestamp. This was it. She was behind that door with him. She had come here willingly. I lifted my hand and knocked twice hard. There was movement inside, a quick shuffle, voices too low to make out. Then the door cracked open, and I saw him. Ryan Holt. He wasn't expecting me, that much was clear. His brows pulled together in confusion, his mouth opening slightly as he tried to place who I was. I didn't give him the chance. I pushed the door open the rest of the way, stepping inside without a word. Emily was sitting on the edge of the bed, her back to the door, her shoes off like she had made herself at home. She turned at the sound, probably expecting room service or some other excuse she had prepared, but when she saw me standing there, her entire body went stiff. For a second, no one spoke. The silence was thick, heavy with the weight of what had just happened, of what couldn't be taken back. Dan, her voice cracked, her hands gripping the sheets like she needed something to hold on to. I cut her off before she could start lying. Don't. I turned to Ryan, who still hadn't moved, still looked like he was trying to figure out whether he should run or start apologizing. You need to get out. He glanced at Emily like she had any say in it, like she was going to protect him. She didn't say a word. She just sat there, her mouth slightly open, her face pale. Ryan swallowed hard, then nodded quickly, grabbing his jacket from the chair and pushing past me without another glance. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving just the two of us in the room. Emily opened her mouth again, but I shook my head. Don't say anything. Not yet. She shut her mouth. I took a slow breath, letting the moment settle before I spoke again. How long? Her hands twisted in her lap, her eyes darting toward the floor. Dan, please. How long? My voice was calm, but it wasn't a question. It was a demand. She hesitated, then let out a shaky breath. A few months. I nodded, letting that sink in. A few months. Months of sneaking around. Months of lies. Months of coming home to me like nothing was happening. I had expected as much, but hearing it from her made it real in a way I hadn't prepared for. Why? I asked, not because I wanted to hear some excuse, but because I needed to know what kind of woman I had married, what kind of person she had been this whole time. She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. I don't know. Bullshit. She flinched. Do not lie to me, Emily. You owe me that much. She wiped at her face, her breath shaky. I felt stuck, like we were just going through the motions, like nothing ever changed. And then I met Ryan, and it was new. It was different, and You what? I leaned forward slightly, my voice sharp. You decided that sleeping with another man was the best way to fix your boredom? She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. I wasn't thinking, Dan. That much is obvious. Her hands dropped to her lap again, her gaze finally meeting mine. I never wanted to hurt you. I let out a short, humorless laugh. You never wanted to hurt me? You've been lying to my face for months. Every time you kissed me, every time you left the house pretending to be with your friends, you were making a choice. Don't insult me by acting like this just happened. She started crying harder, but I didn't feel anything for her anymore. Whatever guilt or pain she wanted me to see, it didn't matter. The woman I had married, the woman I had trusted, wasn't here anymore. Maybe she never had been. I stood up, adjusting my jacket, feeling the weight of finality settle over me. I'm done, Emily. Her head snapped up. Dan, please. No. I looked her in the eye, making sure she understood. We're done. I'll talk to a lawyer first thing in the morning. You can tell the kids whatever you want, but I'll make sure they know the truth eventually. She reached out, but I stepped back. Dan, wait, we can fix this. No, you broke this. And I'm not interested in putting it back together. I walked out without looking back. I didn't go home that night. There was nothing left for me in that house except memories that no longer meant anything. I drove to Mark's place instead, where he had been waiting, already knowing I wouldn't want to be alone. He didn't ask me any stupid questions, didn't try to tell me how to feel, just handed me a beer and let me sit in silence for as long as I needed. I barely touched it. My mind wasn't spinning anymore, wasn't filled with the uncertainty and the anger that had been boiling inside me for days. The moment I had looked Emily in the eyes and told her we were done, everything had gone quiet. There was no more doubt, no more waiting, no more pretending like there was anything left to salvage. She had spent months lying to me, treating me like an idiot, and now she had to live with the consequences of her choices. I stayed on Mark's couch that night, staring at the ceiling until the morning light crept through the window. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since I left the hotel. Emily sending message after message, switching between begging for forgiveness and trying to explain herself in ways that didn't matter. I didn't read them. I had nothing left to say. Instead, I got up, showered, and drove straight to a lawyer's office as soon as they opened. The woman sitting across from me was sharp, professional, and wasted no time getting to the point. You've already decided on divorce? She asked, glancing up from the paperwork. There's nothing to decide, I said. It's done. She nodded. Then we'll make this as quick and clean as possible. You've got a strong position here, especially with evidence of infidelity. Are you looking for full custody of the kids? That was the only part of this mess that gave me pause. As much as I hated Emily for what she had done, as much as I wanted to erase her from my life entirely, she was still their mother. I wouldn't punish them just because she had thrown away our marriage. No, I said finally. I want shared custody. I'm not going to take them away from her, but I want them to know the truth. The lawyer studied me for a moment before nodding again. Fair enough. We'll serve her the papers by the end of the week. If she tries to fight it, We'll make sure she doesn't have a leg to stand on. That was all I needed to hear. I signed what I needed to, shook her hand, and walked out of that office with nothing left but the final conversation I knew I had to have. Emily was still at the house when I arrived, pacing in the living room like she had been waiting for me. The second she saw me, she rushed forward, her face desperate, her voice shaking. Dan, please, we have to talk. I know you're angry. I know I messed up, but we can't just throw everything away like this. I didn't move. We already did. She flinched, but she kept going, like she thought if she said enough words, she could somehow make this go away. I was stupid, okay? I wasn't thinking I wasn't. You were thinking every single time you walked into that hotel. I cut her off. Every time you got in his car. Every time you lied to my face. You were thinking the entire time, Emily. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, her hands trembling as she ran them through her hair. I don't know why I did it. I let out a short breath, tired of hearing the same pathetic excuses. You did it because you wanted to. That's it. That's the only reason that matters. Tears spilled down her face, but I felt nothing watching them. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. You already did. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the envelope, tossing it onto the coffee table between us. Those are the divorce papers. You'll be served officially soon, but I thought I'd do you the courtesy of letting you see them first. We're done, Emily. There's no coming back from this. Her breath hitched, and for a moment, I thought she was going to collapse right there in front of me. Dan, what about the kids? They'll be fine, I said. I'll be fine. You, though? You'll have to live with what you did. She reached for me again, but I stepped back, making it clear there was nothing left to say. Goodbye, Emily. And just like that, I walked out of that house, out of that life, and I never looked back.